can't feel it. It's not heavy enough. I'll do better with more weight. No, they won't. It's basically they've got to go backwards. And I agree completely. Give me somebody that's just weak as a kitten, and let me teach them the bar and technique and bring their squat along. Squats, things like that. That's easy work. The lifts are hard, and you got to be ready to learn them.
I think to bring this sort of back to competition as well, and we always say this, and I've actually posted about it before. I can't remember when, but how many people do you guys know of that have entered a 5K, a marathon, any of these, a triathlon, just to do it, right? And then where do they place in the field? So does anybody know a person that's won a marathon?
I do not personally know.
Right. So where do most people fall in marathons when they run them the first time? They do this thing where they're going to run. They finish 4 to 5 hours, maybe 5.5 hours, something like that. So they're roughly bottom third of the pack, something like that. Sure. So why would you be scared to do a weightlifting meet and finish in the bottom third of the pack if that's your chosen sport, that's what you love, or that's what you enjoy at least? Maybe you came there from CrossFit or something else. Why is it that you need to be? I mean, it's like everybody's got national championitis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Not everybody's going to be a national champion.
Well, it's partially our fault, right? Because both of us post videos of preposterous human efforts, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Tom's clean and jerk today. He cleaned 200K 5 times, right? I don't know where I come from. I'm not going to use science on this, but that's pretty awesome, right?
Yeah. I don't think you need science to say that.
So the problem lies in that the only videos that people ever see, or the only thing they ever hear of, are these just phenomenal off the charts lifts. What's wrong with an 80 kilo for a guy that weighs 85K? What's wrong with an 80 kilo snatch and a 100 kilo clean and jerk? If he's never been a weightlifter before.
Yeah, I think, one of the amazing things about weightlifting as a sport is that it's not like wrestling. I mean, wrestling, you can't help but compete directly against somebody and compare yourself to that person. But weightlifting, just like running a marathon or any other distance, allows you to compete with yourself.
Yeah.
Whether you're going to run a marathon in 5 hours or 3 hours or, whatever the world record is, I have no idea. But I mean, you can get faster than last time wherever you place in the pack. And yeah, you're right. That's a wonderful thing about weightlifting. But, people want to be at the top, right away. And that interferes with people ever getting to the top.
Yeah.
If you don't start training and learning the lifts, before you're like world-class strength athlete, then it's going to probably never allow you to become a world-class weightlifter or national class or whatever class you want it to be.
It's like saying that you're not gonna run your first marathon until you can run a 2:10.
Can people run 2:10 marathons?
It's 2:04, something like that.
They can?
It's really close to 2 hours.
Well, that's freaking crazy.
So it's like saying you're not going to run your first marathon until you run a 2:30, right?
Yeah, that's.
I've known one person ever that's run a sub 3 hour marathon, right? And it was like 2:59. So there's no millions of people do this every year, right? And I'm gonna go out on a limb. We're probably gonna get some hate mail on this one, but what's gonna make you a more competent human? The ability to run a 4.5 hour marathon, or the ability to do your first meet where you're a normal 30-year-old dude that weighs 85K and you snatch 90 and clean and jerk 110? What's probably better for you health-wise?
Well, I would say the weightlifting, because I don't think running enormous mileages every week is really all that healthy. But
it makes you look super hot, though.
I disagree with that.
Oh, I disagree completely. That's
was that sarcasm?
Where I come from, we call that sarcasm.
Oh, I've got a broken.
Have you ever seen the marathon runner guy that pooped his pants? Have you ever seen that picture?
I hope to never see that.
He weighs
picture.
about 8. Well, I'll have Travis pull it up.
Travis,
he
please
weighs
don't
about
pull it up.
85 pounds, and he looks like at any moment he's just going to snap in half, and he's got poop running down his leg.
That's not good.
Sexy.
No, that's not sexy.
I'm just saying. I mean, Lydia Valentine or that guy?
Yeah. I see your point.
Look,
I see your point.
I just want to say right now what just happened with both coaches, with Coach McCauley and Coach Pendlay. When I said the words Lydia Valentine, their eyes both got glassy.
I left the room for a minute.
And they both smiled. If you don't know who Lydia Valentine is, Google her.
Yeah, that's always a good idea.
Maria De La Puente. Do you know what I'm talking about? Google that too, please.
I've been Googling.
Travis, don't Google the poopy marathon runner. Google those instead.
Google Lydia instead.
Okay. Well, before we get too far off into which female athlete to Google, one other thing that I'm quite sure you both have an opinion on. Again, this podcast is just basically aimed at people who are thinking about starting weightlifting. People who are starting. This is a things to do and things to not do. And one, we've covered get to a competition. Once you started training the lifts and can do them, without fear of death or risk of death, get to a competition. If you're building a big squat,
Coach, I'm sorry. Can I just say this? This is like a pet peeve of mine. The guys that their elbows snap in the Olympics,
it doesn't kill them.
Let me just remind people they're snatching roughly 450 pounds. Your elbow's not going to snap with 80 kilos on the bar.
The chances are small.
Slim to none.
Say. And you know what? Out of in more years than a number of years of coaching, I've only ever had one injury like that, and it was a slight elbow dislocation. It went back in. The kid was competing again in a few months. But you could coach weightlifting for a long time and not ever have any injury like that. You've got a lot of chance of injury in almost anything you do, and it's just not likely in weightlifting. And especially if you're not a high level competitor, it's just not super likely. But if you're into weightlifting, go compete. Even if you're not great, go compete. And if you're thinking about doing it, getting into weightlifting, don't try to build your squat up to 400 pounds first. Getting a 400-pound squat's a great thing. It's a wonderful thing. But don't delay your entry into learning the lifts and getting into the sport of weightlifting until you're quote-unquote strong enough. Last, and this I think you guys will both have something to say on this, if you are deciding to learn the lifts, and Rudy, since you have quite a number of CrossFit folks that you teach the lifts to,
monitor.
What do you monitor? You whatever. You do whatever with.
Work with.
Okay. Do you teach them the power versions of the lifts for the first 6 months and then finally decide to teach them to squat under, or do you just teach them the lifts?
Well, as a great coach once said, the power lifts are great as accessories for the full lifts, to learn to elongate the pull, things like that. But we would never consider teaching the power versions as a go-to, simply because that's not the lift. That's half the lift. And so we have at Outlaw Industries, we have this rule where we do whatever the strongest, we would say MFers. I'm not going to say the word. We do whatever the strongest MFers on earth do. And when Ilya goes to the 2016 Olympics and he does power versions and he breaks all the world records, we'll switch to the power versions, right? If that's going to be the way to get the most weight up, then maybe it's best, right? If somebody proves us wrong on that, but I could be wrong in the last, let's say 20, you guys would obviously know better than I would. In the last 20 years, has anyone power snatched or power cleaned at the Olympics?
No.
Coach McCauley, is that?
No,
okay.
I would say no.
So, what we're trying to do is teach, no matter what, we have to drill the full movement. That has to be the immediate comfort, the immediate default, the immediate everything. And there's not even and you know this, I talked to you about this to write the piece that I wrote on the power versus full lifts. The fact that I have to make a distinction on the site when I program a clean, I at some point people, they asked so many times if it could be power, quote unquote, that I just couldn't handle it anymore. And you remember, Coach, we had that conversation on the phone that I quoted you from. That's not the lift, right? That's like saying, well, can it be from a hang, or can it be from, I don't even know. Can it be on one leg? I don't know. I guess that doesn't really make sense, but you get my point.
No, people rarely asked about the one leg version, I don't think.
Well, maybe, I don't know.
Did people really ask about that, Rudy? Did anybody ever say,
one-leg version?
Did anybody ever say, can I do it one-legged?
It was an absurd comment to drill home my point. Okay.
So I've never had anybody ask me if they can
I've
do it
actually
one-legged.
seen that programmed at local CrossFit competitions before. A literal one-leg clean and jerk.
Pistol.
Well, I've actually seen that. I had a guy do that at a camp one time. It was one of the more impressive lifts I've ever seen.
We actually did it for fun once at Cal Strength. I think Rob Blackwell, for some reason, did a clean with one leg and not a full squat clean, but a power clean, just one leg.
Oh, so he didn't do a clean. He did a power clean.
Yeah, power clean.
You see what I did there?
Yeah, I see what you did there. Damn you, Rudy. Let's go to the last. Let's let Dawn talk about that. For a pure weightlifter, when do you teach people to power clean and power snatch?
Yeah, I'm going to take some crap about this. I generally, as I've said a lot of times, I start people with the power versions generally because the people I've had in the past were not capable in all times of getting to the squat easily, but then I quickly bring them into the squat by going to blocks. And I like to teach the squat from blocks because it gets it up past their knees, which I always find is the biggest problem for most people is coming from the floor past the knees. I like to put it in their hips pretty quick and then teach them to go down and catch it where it is. And that's the other thing. Because I came in an age where I watched an awful lot of people in this country lift incorrectly and just pull to the ceiling and just literally dive bomb to the bottom, just drop to the bottom like a rock and watch their knees deteriorate. I kind of have taught people to catch the bar where it is, and I slowly let them get down further by either using blocks or simply as they get heavier weights. At pure weightlifters, of course, we go pretty quickly to the full lift.
But your goal is to get people the full lift as quick as possible. Am I correct in that?
Oh yeah. You got to, and get them so that they know what the hell they're doing. So they're tight in the lift and they know how to ride down. They know how to take it. And they're not, like I say, not hitting the bottom in a bounce kind of thing.
If I can add, I will say I agree with Coach McCauley on the fact that, and I think I'm going to assume what you're talking about is people that have zero experience with the lifts. We will almost always teach if they're doing an intro session at the gym or something like that, we'll almost always teach the power version, and then we want them to go through the squat at some point or something like that. But you guys know that you've seen enough normal people at this point. There's 50% of the population can't even catch a snatch in the bottom. There's probably more than that.
And that would be someone I would have power snatch to start with too. Right. I guess I'm lucky enough that I have spent the majority of my time coaching folks that can do an overhead squat correctly at the first workout.
Right.
And so with somebody like that, we're going to, the second or third time they catch the bar overhead, when you first start teaching them to snatch, I'm going to say now squat down. And if they can get all the way down and they're flexible enough to get in the bottom, then hopefully every snatch from then through the first 6 months of training is going to be a squat snatch, a full snatch.
Most of the people that I'm working with at this point are at seminars or they're fairly accomplished already. So, my comment as far as the full lift is we want you to get there as soon as you possibly can. But if you literally can't hold a bar overhead,
then you have no choice. Yeah. You have no choice. Well, I tell you what, I hope that this has been useful for people that either just got into weightlifting and, the compete as quick as you can, as soon as you can, concept was maybe a little useful, or for those, that are thinking about starting weightlifting and are worried about being strong enough before you start or how you learn the lifts. the first few weeks, and the message is